In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was void and without form, empty, dark, seemingly nothing. But God kept creating, shaping and forming and molding beautiful colors and textures and melodies and water and life and breath. And at the end of it all was humanity, overwhelmed in awe and wonder. And God declared it good. But for some reason, humanity decided to make a choice that separated us from our Creator, a choice to turn away, a choice that made us come face to face with our humanity, broken, ashamed, realizing this changes everything. But in that same beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and this Word established truth, a light that can never be overcome by darkness. And the Word was made flesh, and the Word's name was Jesus. And when Jesus entered the world, he came face to face with humanity. And humanity, staring back at the face of Christ, perplexed perhaps, realizes this changes everything.
So it's been well into 2 years of Jesus' earthly ministry. There have been so many that have come alongside Jesus, some giving up their livelihoods, even their families, to follow this Jesus. They've witnessed unexplained miracles, heard radical teachings, and fed thousands. It's got to be a pretty emotional experience. I mean, so many profound aha moments that are met with, wait, what's happening? What are we supposed to be doing right now? These teachings, these miracles, Jesus would share that it's all about transformation, about reconciliation, about an upside down kingdom, about things changing forever. But he also talked about the cost, and that this cost would first come to Jesus. He doesn't mince words about it. Following one of the most incredible miracles to date, feeding literally thousands of people on the banks of the Sea of Galilee, he turns to his closest friends who have to be having the most amazing mountaintop experience. I mean, there's even this disciple, Peter, who is so confident in what he just witnessed, so sure about his faith that Jesus is who he says he is, that when Jesus asks him, he loudly proclaims the Christ sent from God. And Jesus replies to him and to the other friends gathered, well, the Son of God must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the legal experts, and be killed and raised on that third day. That's not exactly the celebratory speech they were hoping to hear from their leader, their Lord, their liberator. It would have been difficult. It would have been painful. I mean, it's one thing for all of us on the other side of the cross who maybe have already heard this story, but let's imagine that we're there in the moment. I mean, what words would really trip us up? Sure, Jesus says he'll be raised on the third day, but we all know what would put us into a free fall, that he would be killed, that he apparently already knows by whom and where, his own people, their people, at the heart of their holiest city. And so a week goes by and Jesus takes Peter, James, and John, his most closest and trusted friends, up onto a mountain. And as they're there, Jesus is transformed before them. The three barely have words to say about it. The scriptures say that they were speechless. But that later on, when they came back down that mountain, it's clear that what they've witnessed was one of the most profound moments of Jesus' divinity seen in the midst of his humanity. It would have been one of the most incredible moments of their lifetime to witness, like being a part of history and knowing it. It was even so profound that Peter says to Jesus in that moment on that mountaintop, Lord, let's just stay here. Let's pitch up a tent where there's no need to go back down. Of course, for many of us, any of us who've experienced an amazing moment that shaped who we are, we don't want to leave that. No one wants to go home after that. No one wants to go back to the way things were. And of course, no one in their right mind would want to go back down that mountain if they knew what was coming, if they knew where they were headed next. But Jesus makes sure that after they come down the mountain, they know where they are headed. The writers of the Gospel of Luke write that Jesus' face was set on Jerusalem from that point on, that he tells again about his impending betrayal and of his death, and yet he continues each day to make his way towards Jerusalem. The road isn't easy. It's going to be a long journey. They're going to have to stop occasionally along the way. And so that brings us to one of the most interesting exchanges between Jesus and one of the disciples. Jesus sends messengers ahead to an upcoming village that's on the route that they'd like to stop and stay for the night. But when those messengers come back, it turns out that once again, there's no room in the inn. Now, we can play up a ton of likely scenarios as to why they were turned away. This was, after all, a Samaritan village, and it's very well known and documented, the rivalry between these two people groups. Could have been because at this point, to Rome and to the institutional religious leaders of the time, that Jesus was a traitor. This village was not about to be a part of being in the business of aiding and abetting the enemy. Could have been, as Luke says, that this village already knew, at least in part, that Jesus was going towards Jerusalem, and this was not for a casual vacation. But whatever the reason, the rationale, it becomes very clear they're not staying in the village that night. But then there's two who were up on the mountaintop with him, James and John, who are furious. So much so that they pull Jesus aside, and in what can only be described as like raw fury, they ask something of Jesus in a tone that's clearly not asking, but more telling in a polite way. Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them? It seems like a little bit of an outside stretch, an incredibly dramatic and aggressive move for being turned away from a hotel stay. I mean, after all, Jesus has been rejected before. He's been turned away before. This is not the first time that the disciples have been told that their master was not welcome here. But it's like things are different now. Like there's this clock ticking away in their heads. There are these words of their Christ, that he would die hanging over them. There were these miracles of miracles still being processed. And now in the midst of all of this, there's this baggage and another rejection of Christ. Now, Jesus immediately rebukes them for this suggestion as he leads them on to another village. And we're not told what words Jesus shares with James and John in their protest and proposal to annihilate an entire village of people. But I suspect it's because Jesus knew all too well why they said what they said. And it wasn't because the village insulted them by not allowing them to enter. It's because they were in pain. James and John were sitting in that raw place of grief and anger and confusion, and that's a place that can lead anybody to say the wrong thing, to think things that are destructive, to look desperately for an outlet to channel their pain. For days now, they've been sitting with the reality of Jesus' death soon coming, knowing that they can't stop it, wondering if they are somehow to blame for this, angry that this is what it's all come down to, and restless with the fact that they don't know where to direct their grief. So enter stage right, this Samaritan village at the pinnacle of their pain. How incredibly perfect of timing for James and John. After all, it is socially acceptable to hate Samaritans. It's like the easiest of easy targets. And their pain is primed to retaliate. And so they say this, they make this request. Again, Jesus responds sharply at them, making no mistake in his disappointment or disapproval. But he also doesn't dismiss them. He doesn't humiliate them in front of their peers. Yes, he offers correction, but more than anything, Jesus demonstrates tolerance, both to that village, but also to those who are corrupted by grief. He demonstrates that there is a higher way of thinking, that there is another way out of that deep pit, besides just causing others pain so that you're not the only one suffering. You see, Jesus invites James and John to consider in the moment that they're in, rather than allowing their grief to blind them. This village doesn't deserve this. After all, they haven't done anything wrong. How easy it can become for all of us to forget where we are when we're hurting. How easy can it be for us to want others to be in that pain so that we're just not alone in it. How easy it can be for all of us to allow bigotry and cruelty to control us, to make us want to act in violence without any regard for the consequences. And Jesus knows this. Jesus knows this rhythm in us. But Jesus also knows of a better way. Jesus, in this encounter with bitterness and anger and rage, invites us to choose tolerance, to choose love. And yes, to simply say, let's choose love, it sounds so cliche, so remarkably uneventful and impactful, and maybe even for those of us that claim Christianity, hypocritical, considering how many times Christians are the ones to blame for pain and violence done to others. Of course, often in the name of Jesus, right? But maybe that's because we haven't taken the time to truly examine what love requires. Maybe it's because it's easier to claim love rather than experience it. You know, this time of Lent that we're all in now is all about examination, about experience over claim. And it's one in which we're given a chance to see those places where we are broken, where we are lost, where we have become blind to our own pain, which I know doesn't sound like the greatest adventure ever taken. And yet still at the end, no matter what we find along the way, no matter who we are or think we are, it seems that we're still welcome and that maybe we're not alone. So as we continue this journey with Christ toward the cross this Lenten season, may Christ call us to recognize our own brokenness, those places where we have hurt others, those places where we would rather be blind to the pain of others than wrestle with our own grief. And may we see Jesus leading us another way, one that, yes, requires us to step back into our own grief and pain, but also one that makes space for grace. May you observe a holy Lent and see that path of choosing love.
A lot of us grew up believing that any moment we could lose it all. And at the drop of a hat, God might turn his back and move on. A lot of us feel like we blew it, thinking we're just far too gone. But I want you to know there's still a hope for you now. No matter what you've done, you can't erase his love. Nothing can change it. You're not separated, no matter what. Might have been a better time to get honest. Never been a better time to get clean. So come as you are, run to the cross and be free. Oh, be free. No matter what you've done, you can erase his love. Yeah, nothing can change it. You're not separated, no matter what. No matter where you run, he's always holding on. You're still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter what. Don't know what you've been taught, don't know what you've been told. All I know is my God will never let go of you. No, 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 no. Don't know what you've seen, don't know what you've been through. All I know is my God, he'll never let go of you. He'll never let go. You You're still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter what. You're still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter what. You're still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter what. Oh, oh. No